The entire Hayes estate fell silent the moment Damon Castellano stepped out of the black car, because everyone believed the most dangerous mafia don in New York had returned to destroy the family that betrayed him years ago. Rain poured across the marble entrance of the Hayes estate, like silver knives beneath the glow of cathedral-shaped chandeliers. The mansion stood above the northern cliffs outside Manhattan, like a monument built for people who believed wealth could hide corruption forever. Expensive cars lined the circular driveway, while security guards in black suits checked invitations beneath golden lights that barely softened the cold atmosphere surrounding the property. Inside the estate, the annual Hayes Foundation Gala unfolded with artificial elegance. Crystal glasses reflected across polished floors. Politicians smiled beside billionaires, while orchestras performed softly beneath painted ceilings imported from Italy decades earlier. News reporters gathered near the ballroom entrance, hoping to capture photographs of senators, celebrities, and elite business figures donating money to the Hayes family's newest charity initiative. But almost nobody attending the gala cared about charity. The event existed for power, influence, secrets, and Evelyn Hayes understood that better than anyone. She moved quietly through the ballroom wearing a black satin gown chosen personally by her mother earlier that afternoon. The dress looked expensive enough to satisfy elite expectations, but Evelyn still felt invisible inside it. That feeling had followed her most of her life. Invisible when guests praised her family's legacy. Invisible when politicians discussed billion-dollar investments beside her father's office. Invisible whenever her mother corrected her posture, appearance, or voice in front of wealthy guests with carefully disguised cruelty. The Hayes family specialized in emotional control hidden beneath sophistication, especially toward Evelyn. Her childhood unfolded inside private academies, charity dinners, and elite social gatherings where every smile carried expectations attached to it. Mistakes became humiliation. Weakness became shame. Emotional independence became rebellion. By 26, Evelyn had learned how to survive through silence. She rarely argued anymore, rarely trusted anyone, and never believed affection inside her family came without conditions. Across the ballroom, her father, Richard Hayes, laughed comfortably beside several political donors while discussing international investments connected to shipping companies and real estate developments. His expensive tuxedo and polished image disguised a growing panic hidden underneath. The Hayes empire was collapsing financially. Only a handful of people knew the truth. Debt consumed their businesses quietly, while federal investigations circled several overseas accounts tied to missing funds. Investors already whispered concerns privately. Rival executives waited patiently for the first public scandal. Tonight's gala existed partly to hide desperation, and desperation made dangerous people unpredictable. Evelyn noticed tension inside the mansion long before anyone else did. Security teams doubled around restricted corridors. Certain guests arrived without public records or official invitations. Several men connected to organized crime moved through the ballroom, pretending to be businessmen. Then the atmosphere changed completely. A black vehicle stopped outside the estate entrance. Conversations died instantly. Even the orchestra faltered slightly, because everyone recognized a name connected to the man stepping from the car, Damon Castellano, the most feared mafia don in New York. For years, his reputation spread through whispered conversations across political offices, criminal organizations, and elite business circles alike. People described Damon differently depending on who told the story. Some called him brilliant. Others called him merciless. Most simply lowered their voices whenever his name appeared, because powerful men disappeared after crossing Damon Castellano. And tonight, he arrived at the Hayes estate uninvited. Rain slid across his dark overcoat as he stepped toward the entrance, surrounded by silent bodyguards. Damon moved with calm confidence, untouched by the fear spreading through the gala already. He did not need attention. Power followed him naturally. Several politicians immediately avoided eye contact, while wealthy investors quietly stepped away from the entrance corridor entirely. Even Richard Hayes lost color in his face for one brief moment before forcing another artificial smile toward nearby reporters. Evelyn noticed everything, especially the hatred hidden behind her father's eyes. That reaction confused her deeply because Damon Castellano and Richard Hayes supposedly ended all business connections years earlier after private financial disputes no journalist ever fully understood. Yet the tension between them felt far more personal than money. Damon entered the ballroom slowly. Silence followed him like a shadow, and then his eyes found Evelyn. The moment unsettled her immediately, not because he looked threatening, because he looked familiar somehow, like someone carrying memories connected to her long before tonight. For several seconds, Damon studied her quietly from across the ballroom, while conversations cautiously resumed around them. Evelyn tried looking away first, but curiosity rooted her in place emotionally. Fear mixed strangely with fascination. Meanwhile, whispers spread rapidly through the gala crowd. Several wealthy women quietly discussed Damon's criminal reputation while pretending sophistication behind champagne glasses. Politicians exchanged nervous glances after realizing organized crime now stood openly inside one of Manhattan's most elite social events. Hidden racism and class prejudice surfaced almost immediately, too. Old money executives criticized Damon's Italian background behind forced smiles while pretending their own corruption appeared more respectable because it wore expensive suits and attended Ivy League universities. Evelyn hated those conversations. The hypocrisy disgusted her. Many people insulting Damon privately had destroyed more innocent lives through financial greed than organized crime ever had. But nobody inside elite society admitted their violence openly. They simply legalized it. As the gala continued, Evelyn attempted avoiding attention by helping coordinate auction schedules near the Western Ballroom corridor. Unfortunately, her mother noticed immediately. Margaret Hayes approached with cold elegance sharpened through decades of emotional manipulation. Every movement looked graceful enough for magazine covers, while cruelty rested quietly beneath her smile. She criticized Evelyn's appearance first, then her posture, then the fact that she had not yet spoken to several wealthy investors important to the family's reputation. The humiliation happened publicly enough for nearby guests to overhear, and they did. Several women exchanged subtle smirks, while businessmen pretended not to notice Evelyn standing silently beneath her mother's criticism. Years earlier, Evelyn might have defended herself. Now she simply endured it, until another voice interrupted the moment completely. Damon Castellano stepped between them calmly. The ballroom seemed to freeze again. Margaret Hayes immediately lost composure beneath his presence, though she attempted hiding it behind polite formality. Damon barely acknowledged her. His attention remained entirely on Evelyn. Without raising his voice or creating a public scene, he redirected the conversation smoothly enough to shield Evelyn from further humiliation while simultaneously exposing Margaret's cruelty beneath elegant language. It happened so subtly most guests missed it entirely. But Evelyn understood. He protected her, and that frightened her more than open hostility would have, because dangerous men rarely protected strangers without reasons. Afterward, Damon disappeared into private discussions with politicians and business figures near the Eastern Lounge, while Evelyn struggled emotionally with confusion growing inside her chest. Why would he help her? What did he want? Every rumor surrounding Damon Castellano described revenge, violence, and control. Nothing about kindness. Across the evening, Evelyn noticed something even more disturbing. Several members of her family genuinely feared Damon. Not socially, personally. Her uncle avoided entire sections of the ballroom whenever Damon entered nearby conversations. Her father drank heavily despite maintaining public confidence. Security teams shifted constantly around restricted offices upstairs. The gala no longer felt like a charity event. It felt like a battlefield pretending sophistication. Later that night, Evelyn wandered briefly onto the state balcony, searching for silence away from the suffocating atmosphere inside. Rain still fell softly across the city skyline. Then Damon appeared beside her unexpectedly. No bodyguards. No performance. Only quiet tension beneath distant thunder. For several moments, neither spoke. Evelyn sensed emotional exhaustion hidden beneath Damon's controlled expression. It surprised her, because men like him were never supposed to look human, only powerful. Then Damon finally looked toward her directly, and the fear inside his eyes unsettled her more than his reputation ever could, because it was not fear for himself. It was fear for her. He warned Evelyn carefully that her family was hiding something far darker than financial corruption. Powerful people surrounding the Hayes Empire were becoming desperate, and desperate people destroyed anyone capable of exposing the truth. Evelyn tried defending her family instinctively despite years of emotional abuse shaping her distrust already. But Damon's expression never changed. Only sadness appeared briefly across his face. Then he revealed the truth that shattered her completely. Years earlier, Evelyn's father ordered the murder of a woman Damon once loved. Every person who entered the Castellano mansion eventually realized the real danger was not Damon himself, but the secrets buried beneath his empire. The rain had not stopped since the night Damon Castellano revealed the truth about Evelyn's father. For 2 days afterward, the Hayes estate remained consumed by quiet panic hidden beneath fake sophistication. Richard Hayes locked himself inside private meetings with attorneys and investors, while Margaret Hayes pretended nothing unusual had happened during the gala. But fear lived inside the mansion now, and Evelyn could feel it growing. Nobody explained why armed security suddenly appeared around the estate at night. Nobody explained why strange black vehicles waited near the property gates after midnight. Her family avoided direct conversations with her entirely, as if she had become dangerous simply because Damon Castellano spoke to her publicly. Then the first threat arrived. A dead bird appeared outside Evelyn's bedroom window early one morning, with its throat slit carefully across white feathers stained by rainwater. Attached to its leg rested a small silver card with no signature, only 3 words. He remembers everything. Her mother ordered servants to remove the bird immediately, while pretending the incident meant nothing. Her father became furious after discovering it, though his anger looked frightened rather than protective. That reaction terrified Evelyn more than the threat itself, because Richard Hayes feared whoever sent the message. Hours later, Damon Castellano arrived personally at the Hayes estate without warning. This time nobody questioned his presence, not even her father. The conversation between both men happened privately behind closed office doors upstairs, while security guards cleared nearby hallways completely. Evelyn never heard the exact details, but she heard shouting eventually, not Damon's voice, her father's. And when Damon finally emerged from the office, Richard Hayes looked physically weaker than before. Something had changed. That same evening, Evelyn learned she would be leaving with Damon, temporarily for her own safety. Nobody asked her opinion. Her father insisted threats connected to old business rivals placed her in danger. Her mother coldly suggested Damon's protection would help avoid public scandal if reporters learned about the recent security concerns surrounding the Hayes family. Even now, they treated her more like a financial inconvenience than a daughter. The realization hurt less than it should have, perhaps because Evelyn stopped expecting love from them years ago. Damon's convoy carried her north through the outskirts of Manhattan toward the Castellano estate, hidden deep within isolated forest land overlooking the Hudson River. The mansion appeared gradually through heavy rain and iron security gates tall enough to resemble prison walls. The property looked beautiful from a distance, cold from nearby. Massive stone architecture rose above dark trees beneath dim security lights, while armed guards monitored every entrance silently. Expensive fountains decorated the circular driveway, though even luxury seemed lifeless there, like the mansion itself had forgotten warmth long ago. The emotional hooks settled into Evelyn's thoughts immediately. Some places became haunted long before ghosts ever arrived. Inside, the Castellano mansion resembled a palace built for people who trusted power more than peace. Marble hallways stretched endlessly beneath towering ceilings, while expensive artwork covered walls guarded by hidden cameras nearly invisible against dark wood paneling. Everything looked controlled, measured, watched. Servants moved quietly through corridors without making eye contact. Security teams communicated through earpieces constantly. Even the silence inside the mansion felt organized carefully. Evelyn realized within minutes that nobody truly relaxed there, not even Damon. He remained emotionally distant after bringing her to the estate, explaining only basic security rules before disappearing into private meetings downstairs. His personality unsettled Evelyn because it lacked the explosive aggression she expected from a feared mafia don. Damon controlled himself too perfectly. Every movement deliberate, every emotion buried beneath calm restraint. That made him more dangerous somehow. Days passed slowly inside the mansion afterward. Evelyn occupied a luxurious guest suite overlooking the river, Yet the room still felt like a prison despite expensive furniture and breathtaking views. Guards monitored every hallway near her quarters. Certain doors remained permanently locked. Security cameras watched nearly every common area except bedrooms. Freedom inside the mansion existed only as illusion. Isolation consumed Evelyn quickly. She rarely slept properly anymore. Nightmares about her father's secrets mixed with fear surrounding Damon's hidden intentions. Sometimes she wondered whether Damon protected her genuinely or simply kept her close while planning revenge against the Hayes family. Because despite moments of strange kindness, darkness followed him everywhere. That darkness gained a face several days later. Bianca Morelli. She arrived at the mansion during one of Damon's private political meetings and immediately transformed the atmosphere around the estate. Beautiful, elegant, and emotionally sharp enough to wound people. Without raising her voice, Bianca carried herself like someone accustomed to power, and she hated Evelyn instantly. The reason became obvious quickly. Bianca believed Evelyn threatened her position beside Damon. Though Damon never showed romantic attachment publicly toward Bianca, years of rumors connected them through political alliances, criminal negotiations, and private appearances across New York's elite circles. Bianca viewed the mansion as her territory, and Evelyn as an intruder. The manipulation began subtly. Cold smiles during dinner. Backhanded comments about Evelyn's privileged upbringing. Quiet reminders that women connected to powerful men rarely survive long inside organized crime. Bianca especially enjoyed mentioning Damon's dead fiancée. According to whispers among mansion staff, Damon once planned marrying a woman named Selena Moreau years earlier, before she was murdered violently during a political attack connected to rival criminal organizations. Nobody spoke about her openly, but fear entered conversations whenever her name appeared. Evelyn noticed something else too. Damon never allowed photographs of Selena displayed publicly anywhere inside the mansion, almost like remembering hurt too much. Late one evening, Evelyn wandered accidentally into one of the western corridors while searching for the library and discovered several politicians arriving secretly through underground entrances beneath the estate. Federal judges, business executives, even a senator, all entering the mansion after midnight surrounded by private security teams. The meetings lasted hours. Money changed hands quietly, and afterwards several men left looking terrified. The Castellano Empire extended far beyond organized crime. It infected politics itself. That realization deepened Evelyn's fear dramatically. Meanwhile, Damon continued confusing her emotionally. At times, he seemed emotionally untouchable, speaking little while controlling the mansion through silence alone. Other times, Evelyn noticed brief flashes of humanity beneath the brutal reputation surrounding him. One stormy evening, she witnessed him stop an armed guard from beating a young servant who accidentally spilled wine during dinner preparations. Damon never raised his voice, yet the guard looked genuinely terrified afterward. Later that night, Evelyn discovered Damon secretly paid for the servant's younger brother to receive cancer treatment overseas. Nobody else knew. Not even the servant herself. That contradiction disturbed Evelyn deeply. How could a man capable of terrifying entire cities also show quiet compassion nobody expected? The psychological tension between them intensified gradually afterward. Damon often studied Evelyn silently during dinners, like he searched for answers hidden beneath her expressions. Evelyn caught herself doing the same. Fear slowly transformed into curiosity. Curiosity into emotional confusion. Then paranoia entered the mansion fully. Several security teams disappeared unexpectedly over the course of 1 week. Damon's most trusted advisor was removed from the estate overnight after private accusations nobody explained publicly. Servants whispered about betrayal spreading through the organization. Someone inside the Castellano Empire was leaking information. Evelyn felt watched more than ever afterward, especially by Bianca. One sleepless night, driven by equal parts fear and curiosity, Evelyn left her room searching for answers hidden inside the mansion. She discovered an unlocked hallway behind the library, leading toward restricted rooms beneath the estate. The lower level looked entirely different from the luxurious mansion above. Cold concrete walls, private surveillance rooms, locked archives filled with financial records and security files, evidence of an empire built through secrets. Evelyn searched carefully through cabinets until one particular folder caught her attention. Hayes International Holdings. Her family. Inside rested banking records connecting Richard Hayes to offshore accounts tied directly to organized crime transactions spanning almost 15 years. Illegal transfers, political bribery, payments linked to shell corporations under federal investigation. Her father was deeply involved with Damon's empire, far deeper than she imagined. Then Evelyn found something even worse. A hidden photograph slipped between financial records inside an old archive box. The image looked nearly 20 years old, and standing beside Damon's murdered fiancée was Evelyn's mother. Evelyn thought Damon wanted revenge against her family until she discovered her family had been hiding crimes far darker than murder. The photograph refused to leave Evelyn's mind. For 2 nights she barely slept, staring at the image hidden beneath her mattress, while storms rattled against the towering windows of the Castellano mansion. Her mother stood beside Damon's murdered fiancé with intimacy impossible to dismiss as coincidence. They were smiling in the photograph, comfortable together, familiar, which meant their connection had existed long before Damon entered Evelyn's life, long before the gala, long before the hatred between both families became public. The realization poisoned every memory Evelyn carried about her childhood, because her parents had spent years pretending the Castellano name represented danger and corruption, while secretly remaining connected to that world themselves. Now the lies were beginning to crack apart. Outside her bedroom, the mansion had transformed into something colder over the past week. Security patrols doubled overnight. Armed guards stood outside private offices, even during daylight hours. Servants whispered carefully before falling silent whenever Evelyn approached. Fear spread through the estate like smoke. Someone inside the Castellano Empire was preparing for war, and Damon knew it. Evelyn noticed a change immediately in him as well. His emotional control had begun slipping. Not publicly, never publicly, but privately she noticed exhaustion hidden beneath his composure. His meetings lasted longer. Several nights he remained awake until dawn reviewing financial records beside security advisors, while whiskey sat untouched beside stacks of documents. The powerful mafia don who terrified politicians suddenly looked like a man carrying the weight of ghosts nobody else could see. That disturbed Evelyn more than violence ever had, because monsters were easier to fear than damaged people. One evening, unable to silence her growing suspicions any longer, Evelyn returned secretly to the restricted archive rooms beneath the mansion. The underground corridors felt colder this time. Surveillance cameras followed her movement across dim concrete hallways, while distant machinery hummed behind locked steel doors. The Castellano Empire hid entire worlds beneath luxury. This time Evelyn searched deeper. Old financial ledgers connected politicians to offshore accounts disguised through charity organizations and construction firms. Secret recordings documented private meetings between senators and organized crime figures discussing trafficking routes through shipping companies owned jointly by corporate investors and criminal organizations. The deeper Evelyn looked, the uglier the truth became. Women disappeared through networks protected by politicians. Children vanished beneath forged immigration records. Judges accepted payments to erase investigations before trials even began. And tied to many of those records was one repeated name, Richard Hayes, her father. Evelyn's stomach twisted violently while reviewing the documents. She wanted the evidence to be fake. She needed it to be fake, but signatures matched. Transfer records aligned perfectly. Her father had not merely cooperated with organized crime. He helped build entire systems protecting it. The emotional hook struck her with devastating clarity. Some families did not inherit wealth. They inherited blood hidden beneath expensive foundations. Before Evelyn could continue searching, footsteps echoed nearby. She barely managed hiding inside a dark storage corridor before 2 men entered the archive room, speaking quietly. One of them was Damon. The other man carried federal credentials clipped inside his coat. Julian Cross. Evelyn recognized the name immediately from political news broadcasts years earlier. Federal investigator, anti-corruption specialist, public enemy to several organized crime organizations across the East Coast. Yet here he stood inside Damon Castellano's private archives, working with him, Julian looked nothing like television interviews portrayed him. The sharp confidence remained, but exhaustion darkened his face heavily. He moved like someone who stopped believing in justice long ago, but continued chasing out a habit. The conversation between both men revealed terrifying truths quickly. Federal investigations surrounding trafficking networks had expanded nationwide. Politicians connected to Hayes' organization were preparing to destroy evidence before upcoming hearings. Rival mafia families planned betraying Damon by cooperating secretly with federal agencies, while simultaneously preserving their own criminal operations. Nobody involved wanted justice, only survival. Julian warned Damon specifically about increasing leaks inside his organization. Someone close to him continued feeding information to rival families. Someone trusted. After they left, Evelyn remained hidden in silence for several minutes, trying to steady her breathing. Everything she believed about her family was collapsing, and Damon Castellano no longer looked like the greatest danger surrounding her life. Back upstairs, paranoia tightened around the mansion completely. Bianca Morelli intensified her psychological manipulation almost immediately afterward. She began inviting wealthy social elites to private dinners, specifically designed to humiliate Evelyn subtly. Women from elite Manhattan circles criticized Evelyn's background despite her family's wealth, treating her as emotionally unstable because rumors connected her romantically to Damon already. Several guests mocked her father's failing businesses behind polished smiles while pretending sympathy publicly. The class hatred inside elite society disgusted Evelyn increasingly. Those people destroyed lives through corruption while convincing themselves organized crime represented the true evil simply because mafia violence looked uglier in newspapers. Meanwhile, their own cruelty wore designer clothing. Bianca especially enjoyed poisoning social perceptions against Evelyn. She whispered carefully crafted rumors suggesting Evelyn manipulated Damon emotionally to gain power inside the Castellano empire. And gradually the mansion staff began watching Evelyn differently. With suspicion, fear, even resentment. Someone had turned her into a threat. One storm-heavy night, Evelyn wandered accidentally toward the mansion's eastern wing after hearing shouting echo through lower hallways. Security guards blocked several entrances, while servants avoided eye contact completely. Then she saw him, a young man dragged to the corridor, bleeding heavily across expensive marble floors, while Damon followed behind silently. The man had betrayed the organization, leaked security information to rival families. Evelyn expected Damon to execute him immediately. Instead, Damon ordered medical treatment first. That confused her until she overheard the real punishment later. The traitor would remain alive permanently inside one of Castellano's offshore prison facilities, where survival itself became torture. No public execution, no dramatic violence. Only endless disappearance. The coldness of it terrified Evelyn far more deeply, because Damon punished betrayal with emotional precision rather than rage. Later that night, Evelyn found him alone inside the mansion library, surrounded by darkness, except for one lamp glowing above unfinished documents. Rain hammered against massive windows overlooking the river, while silence settled between them carefully. Damon looked exhausted. For the first time since arriving at the mansion, Evelyn noticed age hidden beneath his control. Trauma lived inside his eyes constantly now. Not fear, grief. Without speaking much, he handed her several files connected directly to the Hayes organization. Perhaps he finally understood she deserved the truth. Or perhaps he was simply too tired to hide it anymore. The documents exposed decades of corruption linking Evelyn's father to trafficking operations disguised beneath international shipping contracts. Politicians protected the network through federal interference, while organized crime groups handled enforcement quietly. And years earlier, Damon's fiancée discovered everything. Selena Moreau had apparently planned exposing the operation publicly alongside another insider working secretly against the Empire. Evelyn's hands trembled while reading further. That insider was her mother. Margaret Hayes once tried helping dismantle the criminal network from inside before something went horribly wrong. Suddenly, the photograph made terrifying sense. Her mother and Selena had worked together, which meant Damon's hatred toward the Hayes family carried far more pain than revenge alone. Evelyn looked toward Damon carefully afterward. He remained emotionally distant, Yet sadness lingered heavily around him tonight. For one dangerous moment, Evelyn almost reached toward him, not from romance, from understanding, because both of them had inherited broken worlds built by people pretending power mattered more than humanity. The emotional attachment growing between them frightened her deeply afterward, especially because Damon noticed it too. Over the following days, surveillance intensified throughout the mansion. Security teams monitored phone calls. Vehicles arriving at the estate underwent military-level inspections. Rival organizations prepared openly for conflict now, while political allies quietly abandoned the Castellano Empire entirely. Fear infected everyone, even Damon. Evelyn realized that one night, after hearing glass shatter inside his private office during another closed meeting with Julian Cross. When she entered carefully afterward, she found Damon standing beside broken whiskey bottles scattered across the floor, while rain poured outside behind him. He looked furious, not violent, destroyed. Julian had apparently uncovered evidence proving the assassination attempt against Damon years earlier had not come from rival mafia families alone. Someone connected to the Hayes family helped organize it. Someone close enough to know his movements personally. Damon never explained further, but Evelyn understood enough already. Her family had betrayed everyone, including themselves. Later that night, while passing near the Lower West Corridor, Evelyn overheard Julian Cross speaking privately with one of Damon's security advisors behind partially open doors. And the words she heard changed everything. Because Julian admitted someone inside the Hayes family once ordered Damon Castellano's assassination personally. The moment rival mafia leaders realized Damon would protect Evelyn at any cost, they quietly signed her death warrant. The atmosphere inside the Castellano mansion changed after Evelyn overheard Julian Cross revealing the truth about the assassination attempt against Damon years earlier. Nothing felt stable anymore. Not the mansion. Not the alliances surrounding the empire. Not even Damon himself. For the first time since arriving at the estate, Evelyn understood that she no longer stood near the center of danger. She had become part of it. News spread quickly through New York's criminal underworld that Damon Castellano was protecting Richard Hayes' daughter personally. That single fact destabilized years of carefully balanced power between rival organizations, because powerful men did not protect weaknesses. And Damon Castellano had suddenly made Evelyn his greatest one. The consequences arrived immediately. 3 days after Julian's revelation, a luxury sedan exploded outside a Manhattan restaurant connected to the Castellano organization. No one important died, but the message was obvious enough for every criminal network across the East Coast to understand. War was approaching. Federal agencies intensified investigations around Damon's businesses, while rival mafia families quietly prepared for violence behind political negotiations disguised as diplomacy. News channels suddenly began publishing stories about organized crime connections tied to the Castellano Empire. Someone was feeding information directly to the media, and Bianca Morelli ensured Evelyn became part of the narrative. Rumors spread across elite social circles, describing Evelyn as a manipulative outsider responsible for destabilizing organized crime alliances. Wealthy women who once ignored her entirely now discussed her publicly during charity galas and political dinners. Some called her dangerous. Others called her pathetic. Many blamed her for Damon's emotional instability. The cruelty intensified because Evelyn lacked the coldness elite society respected. Unlike women raised inside criminal empires, she still carried visible emotion, fear, doubt, grief. To people addicted to power, humanity looked weak. Bianca exploited that weakness expertly. She organized private gatherings inside Manhattan penthouses, where wealthy elites quietly mocked Evelyn's background despite her family's fortune. Hidden racism and class discrimination surfaced constantly beneath polished language. Several old money investors criticized Evelyn's mother for marrying beneath proper society decades earlier because part of her family carried immigrant roots tied to Southern Europe. Others implied Evelyn's emotional instability proved certain bloodlines were unfit for leadership circles. The hypocrisy disgusted Evelyn increasingly. These people funded trafficking networks and political corruption while convincing themselves they remained morally superior because they attended charity events wearing diamonds. One night, During an elite fundraiser hosted by a senator secretly tied to the Hayes organization, Evelyn experienced the humiliation directly. Damon brought her publicly despite warnings from his advisors. The moment they entered the ballroom together, conversations shifted. Eyes followed them everywhere. Powerful men whispered carefully behind champagne glasses, while women studied Evelyn with barely disguised contempt. She could feel the judgment surrounding her like smoke. Nobody feared her. They feared what Damon was becoming because of her. That realization unsettled the room more deeply than violence ever could. Throughout the evening, Damon remained beside Evelyn constantly, though protection looked less romantic than territorial. Security teams shadowed every hallway, while rival mafia figures observed them carefully from private tables. The summit itself had been organized to prevent war between criminal organizations after recent federal pressure increased nationwide. Instead, the gathering only exposed how fractured everything had become. Several rival leaders confronted Damon privately during the event, though voices remained controlled. The hostility beneath their conversations spread visibly through the ballroom. They accused him of allowing emotions to compromise business decisions, accused him of risking decades of criminal stability for a woman connected to enemies. One elderly mafia leader openly questioned whether Damon had become too weak to lead. The silence afterward felt lethal. Damon never raised his voice, but the fear inside the room intensified immediately, because everyone understood Damon Castellano was dangerous precisely because he rarely lost control. Later that night, Evelyn accidentally witnessed the aftermath of one of those confrontations inside a private corridor behind the ballroom. A rival security operative had apparently attempted leaking confidential meeting details to federal contacts. Damon handled the betrayal personally. The brutality shocked Evelyn deeply, not because it was loud, because it was efficient, cold, controlled. Within minutes, the traitor disappeared permanently while Damon calmly adjusted blood across his cufflinks afterward, as though violence had become instinct long ago. For the first time, Evelyn fully understood why powerful men feared him. And yet minutes later, Damon quietly placed his coat around her shoulders after noticing she was trembling from the cold balcony wind outside. That contradiction destroyed her emotionally. How could the same man embody such brutality and restraint simultaneously? The emotional hook haunted her constantly afterward. Sometimes the most terrifying people were not those incapable of love, but those willing to destroy entire worlds to protect it. Back at the mansion, fear spread rapidly among staff and security teams. Several employees resigned suddenly after discovering federal investigations had expanded toward Castellano properties nationwide. Armed patrols doubled around the estate, while helicopters occasionally circled nearby forests at night. Paranoia consumed everyone, especially Damon. Evelyn noticed he slept even less now. Some nights she heard him moving through hallways alone long after midnight, while rain battered the estate outside. Other nights he disappeared entirely into underground offices beneath the mansion alongside Julian Cross and senior advisors. Something massive was approaching, and Damon was preparing for it. Meanwhile, betrayal continued spreading inside his organization. 2 trusted guards vanished unexpectedly after private interrogations. Financial accounts tied to the empire disappeared offshore overnight. Confidential security routes leaked repeatedly to rival groups despite Damon tightening internal surveillance constantly. Someone close to him was helping dismantle the organization from within. Bianca sensed the instability too. Her behavior toward Evelyn became openly hostile afterward. She no longer hid her resentment behind elegant manipulation. During private dinner, she openly implied Evelyn's presence would destroy everyone connected to Damon eventually. And perhaps she was right, because death kept moving closer. One rainy afternoon, while returning from a heavily guarded medical clinic after routine security checks, Evelyn's convoy came under attack crossing a narrow Manhattan bridge. Gunfire erupted from black SUVs without warning. The ambush lasted less than 2 minutes, but it changed everything. Damon personally dragged Evelyn from the targeted vehicle moments before another car exploded behind them violently enough to shake nearby traffic lanes. Armed guards returned fire while civilians screamed across rain-covered streets. Evelyn barely remembered escaping. only Damon's hand gripping her wrist tightly, while bullets shattered glass around them. Afterward, news channels described the incident as a gang-related transportation conflict. No mention of assassination. No mention of organized crime. Political allies buried the truth instantly. That night, Damon became more protective than ever before. He moved Evelyn into private, secure quarters beside his own wing inside the mansion, despite objections from advisors worried about appearances. Security checkpoints surrounded every hallway nearby. Even Bianca looked alarmed by how far Damon's loyalty toward Evelyn had progressed. And slowly, despite fear consuming everything around them, emotional trust deepened between them in dangerous silence. Damon began sharing small truths without explanation. He showed Evelyn hidden reports proving rival organizations planned coordinated attacks against the Castellano Empire. He admitted federal agencies no longer care about justice, only controlling which criminal networks survive politically useful arrangements. One evening, he even revealed why he truly hated Richard Hayes. Years earlier, Damon's fiancée discovered evidence linking trafficking victims to wealthy political investors protected by the Hayes organization. Before she could expose them publicly, someone leaked her location. She was murdered hours later. Damon believed Richard Hayes ordered it. But now evidence suggested someone else inside Evelyn's family played a larger role. That uncertainty haunted him, and it haunted Evelyn too, because every answer uncovered new betrayals beneath it. Eventually, the pressure became unbearable. Evelyn stopped recognizing herself entirely. Fear followed her constantly now. Every hallway felt watched. Every dinner felt poisoned by hidden agendas. Every glance from mansion staff carried suspicion. She began emotionally collapsing beneath the weight of everything surrounding her. One midnight thunderstorm pushed her beyond exhaustion completely. Unable to sleep, Evelyn stood alone beside her bedroom window, watching lightning flash across the forest surrounding the estate while distant thunder rolled through the mountains. For one brief moment, silence returned. Then the window exploded violently inward. A sniper bullet crashed through the glass inches from Evelyn's head. The second Damon pulled Evelyn onto the ballroom floor, every criminal leader in New York realized the feared Mafia Don was finally losing control. The sniper attack changed everything inside the Castellano Empire. By morning, the mansion no longer resembled a private estate. It looked like a fortress preparing for war. Armed guards occupied every entrance, while security teams scanned surrounding forests continuously. Black armored vehicles lined the circular driveway beneath cold rain and flashing surveillance lights. Nobody trusted anyone anymore, especially Damon. The bullet that nearly killed Evelyn shattered the final illusion of control surrounding his empire. Rival organizations had crossed a line impossible to reverse now, and everyone inside the criminal underworld understood retaliation was coming. But instead of disappearing into hiding, Damon did something unexpected. He announced a gathering, a massive summit involving every major mafia family, political ally, financial investor, and criminal partner connected to the East Coast underworld. The invitation shocked everyone, because powerful men usually met quietly during moments of instability, not publicly, not beneath chandeliers surrounded by enemies. Yet Damon personally ordered preparations for the event inside the Castellano estate itself. Some believe it was a display of strength. Others believe Damon was becoming reckless. Only Julian Cross understood the truth. The empire was already collapsing. This gathering would determine who survived the fall. For 3 days, the mansion transformed into a palace built for predators. Imported flowers arrived from Europe, while security systems upgraded across the estate. Private chefs, politicians, celebrities, judges, and billionaires began arriving under heavy protection. Luxury disguised panic beautifully, and Evelyn saw through all of it. After surviving the sniper attack, something inside her had changed emotionally. Fear no longer controlled her the same way. Exhaustion replaced it instead. She finally understood no amount of silence or obedience would save her now. Too many people wanted her dead. Too many secrets surrounded her existence inside Damon's world. The realization should have broken her completely. Instead, it sharpened her awareness, especially toward Damon. He looked different now, colder publicly, more unstable privately. Some nights, Evelyn caught him staring at security footage alone for hours without speaking. Other nights, she overheard violent arguments between Damon and senior advisors regarding betrayals spreading through the organization. Even his men feared him differently now, not because he appeared weak, because emotional attachment had made him unpredictable, and unpredictable leaders frightened criminal empires more than violence ever could. The night of the summit arrived beneath heavy snowfall blanketing the estate in unnatural silence. Hundreds of luxury vehicles filled the property while helicopters monitored surrounding airspace overhead. Inside, the ballroom glowed beneath gold chandeliers and towering glass walls overlooking frozen forests. Politicians laughed beside organized crime leaders, while famous investors pretended not to recognize federal fugitives standing nearby. Corruption had become sophisticated enough to wear tuxedos comfortably. Evelyn entered the ballroom wearing a dark silver gown chosen reluctantly by Bianca Morley earlier that evening. Bianca claimed appearance mattered politically tonight. In truth, she wanted Evelyn displayed, observed, judged. The moment Evelyn stepped into the ballroom, conversations shifted around her immediately. Some guests stared openly. Others whispered behind controlled smiles. She could feel hatred following her through the room, not because of who she was, because Damon Castellano had chosen to protect her publicly, and powerful people despised anything capable of weakening dangerous men. Across the ballroom, Damon stood surrounded by rival mafia leaders and political donors near the central staircase. His black suit blended almost unnaturally into the shadows around, while security teams maintained careful distance nearby. Then his eyes found Evelyn. The tension between them unsettled the entire room instantly, because it no longer looked strategic. It looked personal. Bianca noticed too. Jealousy darkened her expression briefly, before she disappeared into private conversations with several rival leaders positioned near the western balcony. Evelyn watched carefully as Bianca whispered beside wealthy investors and criminal figures, while exchanging subtle gestures impossible to interpret fully. Manipulation moved silently inside elite circles, and Bianca moved through it effortlessly. Meanwhile, Julian Cross drifted throughout the ballroom, like a man belonging nowhere completely. Federal agents respected him publicly, while organized crime figures tolerated him cautiously. Nobody fully trusted him anymore, because Julian played both sides constantly now. He leaked information selectively to federal agencies, while simultaneously protecting Damon from investigations threatening to expose wider political corruption. His loyalty belonged neither to justice nor organized crime, only survival. That made him dangerous. As the evening progressed, psychological warfare spread through the ballroom beneath artificial sophistication. Rival leaders challenged Damon indirectly through coded conversations disguised as political discussions. Wealthy investors questioned financial stability surrounding the Castellano empire while secretly shifting money toward competing organizations. Everyone sensed weakness. Everyone waited for Damon to collapse first. Hidden weapons surrounded the ballroom, too. Evelyn noticed armed bodyguards positioned near exits pretending to be waiters. Several mafia leaders carried concealed firearms beneath tailored jackets. Even politicians arrived with private security teams heavily armed beneath formal clothing. This was not a celebration. It was a battlefield rehearsing elegance. Then Damon made the decision that changed everything. Without warning, he crossed the ballroom directly toward Evelyn. Conversation stopped gradually around him. Fear followed naturally. And before anyone could understand his intentions, Damon reached for Evelyn's hand publicly beneath the chandeliers. The ballroom froze, because every criminal leader there remembered the first gala where Damon protected her. But this felt different, more dangerous, more emotional. Damon guided Evelyn toward the center ballroom floor, while musicians hesitated uncertainly before resuming softly under pressure from event coordinators desperate to preserve appearances. The symbolic cruelty of the moment stunned everyone. Months earlier, Evelyn feared Damon Castellano completely. Now she stood inside his arms while rival organizations watched the empire unravel around them. The dance itself remained slow and quiet, yet emotional tension spread across the room violently. Nobody looked away, because powerful men recognize weakness immediately. And for the first time in years, Damon Castellano looked afraid. Not for himself. For Evelyn. Evelyn noticed it too. His hand tightened subtly against hers whenever rival leaders approached nearby conversations. His eyes constantly scanned exits, balconies, security routes. He expected violence tonight. The realization sent cold fear through her chest. But something else frightened her more. Despite everything surrounding them, Evelyn no longer wanted distance from him. The emotional attachment had become dangerous now, not because Damon manipulated her, because she finally understood the grief hidden beneath his brutality. Every violent decision, every moment of control, every calculated threat, all built around survival inside a world where love became vulnerability criminals exploited mercilessly. And somehow Damon still protected her anyway. That realization nearly destroyed her emotionally. The emotional hook settled painfully inside her thoughts. Sometimes the most tragic people were those who believed they deserved to become monsters in order to protect others from suffering. Across the ballroom, Bianca continued poisoning alliances carefully. She manipulated rival leaders by suggesting Damon's emotional instability threatened every organization financially connected to the Castellano Empire. Meanwhile, Julian Cross quietly intercepted several federal contacts attempting coordinated raids against criminal operations connected to the summit. The entire ballroom stood balanced above betrayal. Then everything began collapsing simultaneously. A senior Castellano security officer disappeared from his assigned position near surveillance control rooms. Moments later, several internal security cameras shut down unexpectedly across the estate. Nobody noticed immediately except Damon. Evelyn felt it through him before alarms ever sounded. His body stiffened, eyes darkening instantly. Somewhere nearby, Truss had just died. Rival leaders exchanged subtle glances across the ballroom afterward. Certain guests began moving quietly toward exits, while armed guards repositioned themselves strategically near entrances. The coordinated attack had already begun, and the terrifying part was how many people inside the room expected it. Damon pulled Evelyn slightly closer, without breaking the dance publicly. To outsiders it appeared intimate. In reality, he was shielding her. Then the mansion lights flickered once, twice. Security communication devices erupted simultaneously across the ballroom. And before anyone could react, heavy steel doors slammed shut around the estate automatically. The ballroom doors suddenly locked as armed men surrounded the estate. By sunrise, the mansion floors were covered in blood, and Evelyn finally understood why nobody survived loving a mafia king. The instant the ballroom doors locked, panic spread to the Castellano estate like wildfire beneath gasoline. Guests rushed toward exits that no longer opened while armed guards reached beneath tuxedos for hidden weapons. Crystal glasses shattered across marble floors as politicians abandoned dignity for survival. Somewhere beyond the mansion walls, automatic gunfire erupted through the snow-covered estate. The coordinated attack had begun, and everyone inside the ballroom instantly understood one terrifying truth. Someone from inside Damon's organization had helped orchestrate it. Damon reacted before fear fully consumed the room. Within seconds, security teams loyal to him surrounded the ballroom perimeter, while rival mafia leaders pulled weapons openly beneath the chandeliers. Screams echoed across the estate as explosions thundered from distant wings of the mansion. The summit transformed into a battlefield instantly. Evelyn barely processed the chaos before Damon grabbed her wrist and pulled her behind an overturned banquet table as bullets shattered mirrors across the ballroom walls. The image stayed burned into her memory forever. Elegant politicians crawling through broken glass. Criminal kings bleeding across marble floors. Women wearing diamonds screaming beneath falling chandeliers. Power looked pathetic once survival became uncertain. Gunfire intensified rapidly. Several rival families had arrived prepared for war long before entering the mansion. Hidden weapons emerged from instrument cases, catering carts, and security bags positioned strategically throughout the estate. Men who smiled together moments earlier now executed each other openly beside burning curtains. Trust disappeared completely. Damon remained terrifyingly calm through all of it. That frightened Evelyn more than the violence itself, because he moved through chaos like someone who had expected betrayal his entire life. He shielded Evelyn constantly while eliminating attackers with brutal precision across corridors filling with smoke and blood. Several gunmen died before even recognizing Damon had seen them. There was nothing reckless about his violence. It was disciplined, efficient, emotionless, and that made it horrifying. As Damon escorted Evelyn through private hallways beneath the mansion, emergency alarms screamed throughout the estate while security systems malfunctioned repeatedly. Entire surveillance networks collapsed one by one. The attack was happening from both outside and inside simultaneously. Traitors had already compromised the Empire long before night. The first betrayal revealed itself near the Eastern Security Wing. A senior Castellano lieutenant named Vincent Hale attempted ambushing Damon beside underground access tunnels leading toward the armored garages. Vincent had served Damon for almost 12 years. Damon killed him without hesitation. No anger, no speech, only cold acceptance. Evelyn saw something devastating in Damon's eyes afterward. Not grief, recognition, as if betrayal no longer surprised him. The emotional hook struck her painfully then. The loneliest people in the world were often those powerful enough to trust nobody completely. More explosions rocked the mansion moments later. Fire spread rapidly through the northern guest wing, while emergency sprinklers malfunctioned deliberately. Smoke rolled across ceilings as armed men continued storming the estate from surrounding forests. Outside, rival organizations had begun full assault operations against Castellano properties throughout New York simultaneously. The Empire was collapsing in real time, and somewhere inside that destruction, Julian Cross continued manipulating everyone. Federal agents suddenly appeared surrounding nearby roads, while helicopters circled overhead broadcasting emergency frequencies. But instead of stopping the violence, certain federal units allowed rival gunmen access routes into the estate deliberately. Julian had orchestrated it carefully. He fed information to both sides, protected certain criminal leaders while sacrificing others, maintained enough chaos to weaken every organization involved while positioning himself politically for survival afterward. Damon realized it almost immediately, which meant Julian Cross had officially become an enemy too. Meanwhile, Bianca Morelli completed her betrayal publicly. Evelyn discovered the truth while crossing through the lower west corridor beneath the mansion. Bianca stood inside a communications room, beside rival operatives transmitting security routes directly to attacking forces outside. She had been helping dismantle the Castellano Empire for months. Not for love, not even revenge, for power. Bianca believed Damon's emotional attachment to Evelyn made him vulnerable enough to destroy, and she wanted control over what remained after the Empire collapsed. When Bianca saw Evelyn standing there, hatred twisted across her face completely. Years of jealousy surfaced instantly. She blamed Evelyn for everything, for Damon's instability, for the war, for the weakness spreading through the Empire. The confrontation ended violently. One of Bianca's armed men fired first, forcing Damon into immediate retaliation. Gunfire exploded through the communications wing, while computer systems sparked and died around them. Bianca escaped deeper into the mansion during the chaos, but not before triggering another catastrophic breach in the estate security network. Entire sections of the mansion lost power afterward. The war inside the estate became impossible to control. As the night deepened, innocent people began dying everywhere. House staff caught between crossfire collapsed across service hallways. Security guards burned alive inside collapsing surveillance rooms. Drivers attempting escape were executed outside by rival gunmen waiting beyond the gates. Evelyn witnessed enough death to permanently alter something inside her. This was no longer organized crime disguised as business. It was human collapse, and Damon stood at the center of it. Yet despite everything, he never stopped protecting her, even while bleeding from a gunshot wound across his shoulder, even while entire wings of his empire burned around him. Some part of him remained focused only on keeping Evelyn alive. That realization terrified her emotionally because she finally understood how deeply Damon had fallen, not into obsession, into attachment. And attachment destroyed men like him. During a temporary escape into underground tunnels beneath the estate, Damon revealed hidden truths about Evelyn's mother that shattered everything she believed about her family. Years earlier, Evelyn's mother secretly helped Damon's fiancé gather evidence, exposing trafficking operations tied to political elites and criminal investors connected to the Hayes organization. She tried protecting victims, tried escaping the corruption, but someone inside the Hayes family betrayed her involvement before the evidence reached federal authorities. Damon's fiancé died because of it, and shortly afterward, Evelyn's mother disappeared emotionally from public life, becoming cold, withdrawn, and heavily controlled by Richard Hayes afterward. Not because she was weak, because fear silenced her. Evelyn realized that her family had never been wealthy social elites trapped beside corruption. They had helped build it. The truth nearly broke her. But there was no time for grief anymore. News broadcasts suddenly appeared across emergency monitors throughout the underground bunker system. National media outlets began leaking classified files connected to trafficking operations, offshore accounts, judges accepting bribes, senators laundering criminal money, and organized crime alliances spanning decades. Political corruption exploded publicly nationwide overnight. The source remained unclear. Some blamed Julian, others blamed Damon. Either way, the underworld had begun destroying itself publicly. Federal raids launched simultaneously across New York, Chicago, Miami, and Las Vegas, targeting criminal networks tied to the Castellano organization and rival families alike. No empire would survive this, and everyone knew it. Back above ground, the mansion continued collapsing under coordinated attacks. Entire staircases burned while structural explosions ripped through lower wings of the estate. Snow outside mixed with ash drifting through shattered windows. The mansion looked less like a home now, more like a dying kingdom. Yet amidst the destruction, emotional connection between Damon and Evelyn deepened painfully, not through romance, through survival. They moved together through collapsing corridors instinctively now. Damon shielded her from debris repeatedly, while Evelyn helped stop bleeding from his injuries using torn fabric from her gown. Fear still existed between them, but loyalty existed too now. Dangerous loyalty, the kind built inside shared devastation. Eventually, Damon led Evelyn toward an underground escape route hidden beneath the library chamber. Emergency vehicles waited beyond the forest, according to surviving security teams still loyal to him. For one brief moment, escape seemed possible. Then the final betrayal arrived. Bianca triggered explosives planted throughout the mansion's lower foundations months earlier. The entire estate shook violently. Walls cracked apart instantly, while fire erupted beneath the underground tunnels. Support beams collapsed around them as smoke and debris consumed the corridor leading toward escape vehicles. Damon reacted instantly. He shoved Evelyn behind reinforced concrete moments before a massive explosion tore through the underground chamber. The force separated them completely. Flames swallowed the corridor, while sections of the mansion above collapsed inward like dying giants crashing into darkness. Evelyn screamed for Damon through smoke and fire, while alarms wailed everywhere around her. Then she saw him one final time through collapsing debris, bleeding, surrounded by flames, still trying to reach her, before another explosion consumed the tunnel entirely. Damon disappeared inside the burning mansion after saving Evelyn from the explosion. Even after Damon vanished in the explosion, powerful men across America still whispered his name with fear. 3 months after the destruction of the Castellano mansion, New York still carried the scars of that night, like a city recovering from a hidden war. Official news reports described catastrophe as a massive criminal conflict involving organized syndicates, corrupt politicians, and financial conspiracies connected to federal investigations. Publicly, the government celebrated the collapse of several major criminal organizations. Privately, fear spread faster than ever, because Damon Castellano's body had never been recovered from the ruins. And in the underworld, uncertainty frightened powerful men more than death. The Castellano empire fractured violently after the mansion explosion. Former allies turned against one another within days, while rival organizations fought openly for abandoned territories, offshore accounts, weapons networks, and political influence previously controlled by Damon. Executions increased across New York. Corrupt officials disappeared suddenly. Entire criminal operations vanished overnight. Without Damon controlling the balance between organizations, chaos consumed everything. And somewhere inside that chaos, Julian Cross rose carefully through the destruction. The same federal investigator who once balanced himself between law and organized crime now positioned himself as a national hero, exposing corruption networks tied to mafia operations across America. News channels praised him constantly, while politicians publicly supported expanding federal authority under his supervision. But Evelyn understood the truth. Julian had not destroyed the empire. He had redirected it. Power never disappeared. It only changed hands. Meanwhile, Evelyn attempted rebuilding a quiet life far away from the violence. After surviving the mansion collapse, she disappeared from elite society almost completely. The Hayes family name became toxic following nationwide investigations into trafficking operations and financial corruption tied to her father's political empire. Richard Hayes himself vanished shortly after federal raids intensified. Some believed he escaped overseas. Others whispered rival organizations murdered him before authorities could arrest him publicly. Either way, Evelyn stopped searching for answers involving him. Too much blood already existed beneath her family's legacy. She moved into a small apartment outside Boston, under limited federal protection, arranged through temporary legal agreements connected to ongoing investigations. Compared to the Castellano estate, the apartment felt painfully ordinary. But ordinary no longer felt safe. Trauma followed her everywhere. Loud noises still triggered panic inside her chest. Some nights she woke shaking after dreaming about burning hallways and collapsing walls inside the mansion. Other nights she remembered Damon disappearing behind flames while trying to reach her. Those memories never softened. They only became quieter. And somehow that frightened her more. The emotional hook haunted her constantly. Sometimes surviving tragedy hurt more than dying inside it, because survivors carried the weight of every unfinished goodbye. Evelyn rarely left her apartment, except for meetings connected to federal investigations. Reporters occasionally followed her through the streets, while online conspiracy forums obsessed over her connection to Damon Castellano. Some called her a victim. Others called her the woman who destroyed an empire. Neither felt true, because deep inside, Evelyn still could not decide whether Damon had been a monster trying to protect her or a broken man incapable of escaping violence. Perhaps he had been both. Months passed slowly until the first coded message arrived. It appeared hidden inside an ordinary newspaper delivered outside her apartment one rainy morning. At first, Evelyn almost ignored it completely, until she noticed certain letters circled carefully across multiple pages. The pattern formed coordinates. And beneath the coordinates, one sentence appeared through mark symbols hidden between advertisements. Some fires are designed to erase evidence. Others are designed to hide survivors. Fear spread through her instantly. Nobody except Damon would have known the phrase, connected to a private conversation they once shared inside the mansion library weeks before the attack. Evelyn destroyed the newspaper immediately afterward, but the paranoia returned stronger than ever. Soon more messages followed. Bank statements appeared anonymously, revealing hidden financial accounts tied to political figures already under federal investigation. Encrypted files surfaced exposing judges connected to trafficking operations spanning decades. Secret recordings involving senators and organized crime leaders leaked online through untraceable servers. The corruption network Damon once tried destroying publicly was collapsing piece by piece. And someone wanted Evelyn to see it happening. Meanwhile, enemies continued hunting her quietly. Twice she noticed unfamiliar vehicles parked near her apartment for hours. One night a man attempted following her through an underground parking garage before disappearing after she contacted federal security immediately. Protection around her increased afterward. Yet Evelyn trusted nobody now. Not federal agents. Not politicians. Not even Julian Cross. Especially Julian Cross. His influence expanded rapidly nationwide after the Castellano Empire collapsed. He appeared constantly beside senators, intelligence officials, and major media networks discussing criminal reform and anti-corruption initiatives. But Evelyn noticed something disturbing hidden beneath his success. Many organizations Julian claimed to destroy quietly reappeared under new leadership connected to federal contracts and private security corporations. The system had not been dismantled, only reorganized. Eventually, Evelyn uncovered the full truth about her family through hidden files leaked anonymously to her encrypted email account late one evening. The documents shattered everything remaining from her childhood. Her father had not simply collaborated with organized crime. He helped create financial pipelines protecting trafficking operations, illegal arms trades, and political blackmail systems for years. Worse still, Evelyn discovered her mother secretly attempted exposing those operations alongside Damon's fiancée, before both women were silenced through intimidation and violence. Her mother survived physically, but emotionally she disappeared afterward. The realization devastated Evelyn completely. Her family had not been trapped beside evil. They had fed it willingly, and Damon spent years carrying the consequences. The emotional conflict surrounding him deepened painfully afterward. Evelyn began revisiting memories differently now. She remembered how Damon protected innocent staff members during attacks despite his brutality, how he reacted with genuine hatred toward trafficking operations, how grief transformed him into someone both terrifying and deeply damaged. For the first time, Evelyn wondered whether revenge had ever truly motivated him at all, or whether he simply wanted someone to finally understand the truth. Weeks later, another coded message arrived. This time hidden inside financial documents leaked publicly through anonymous online archives connected to former Castellano shell corporations. A date, a location, and beneath them, one sentence. The dead are easiest to hide inside places built for confession. The coordinates pointed toward an abandoned cathedral outside northern New York. Evelyn tried ignoring it. For 3 days she resisted the urge entirely. But curiosity became stronger than fear eventually, especially because she already knew the impossible truth forming quietly inside her thoughts. Damon Castellano might still be alive. The journey toward the cathedral happened during the middle of a brutal winter storm. Snow covered isolated roads while dead trees surrounded abandoned industrial districts forgotten by the city decades earlier. The cathedral stood hidden beyond collapsing stone walls overlooking a frozen river valley. It looked ancient, empty, almost buried beneath time itself. Evelyn entered cautiously through broken wooden doors, hanging partially open beneath the wind. Dust and snow drifted across cracked marble floors, while moonlight filtered through shattered stained glass windows above. Silence consumed everything inside. At first she believed the message had been another trap. Then she noticed fresh footprints across the cathedral floor. Someone had been there recently. Her heartbeat accelerated immediately. As Evelyn moved deeper into the abandoned structure, she discovered hidden symbols carved beneath one of the cathedral benches, matching coded markings from previous messages. Beneath the floorboards nearby, a concealed vault contained stacks of financial records, encrypted drives, political documents, and photographs exposing corruption networks still operating across America. Damon had prepared everything carefully long before the mansion attack. A survival strategy, insurance against collapse, evidence powerful enough to destroy governments. And hidden beneath the files rested one final photograph. It showed Damon standing beside Evelyn's mother nearly 20 years earlier. Both looked younger, tired, afraid, connected by secrets history tried burying. The realization left Evelyn frozen completely. Then movement shifted through the darkness behind the cathedral altar. Slow, deliberate, Evelyn turned instinctively toward the shadows, and her breath stopped, because standing beneath fractured moonlight near the ruined altar was Damon Castellano himself, alive, watching her silently from inside the shadows of the abandoned cathedral. The final time Damon reached for Evelyn's hand happened moments before the entire empire collapsed forever. For several seconds, Evelyn could not move. The abandoned cathedral felt suspended outside reality itself as snow drifted silently through broken stained glass windows above. Moonlight cut across the ruined altar where Damon Castellano stood half hidden inside shadow, alive after months of being declared dead by governments, criminal organizations, and national media. He looked different, thinner, more exhausted. The controlled authority that once surrounded him had fractured beneath visible grief and survival. A scar crossed one side of his face near his temple, while exhaustion darkened his eyes permanently. But the most unsettling difference was emotional. Damon no longer looked like a man trying to control an empire. He looked like a man preparing to bury one. Evelyn's first instinct was anger, not relief, not comfort. Months of grief, fear, confusion, and emotional devastation crashed through her at once as she stared at him standing there silently, like a ghost refusing burial. Because while the world collapsed around his disappearance, Damon had remained hidden, watching, planning, waiting. And despite everything Evelyn experienced since the mansion explosion, part of her still hated herself for feeling relieved he survived. The emotional hook settled painfully inside her chest. Sometimes love did not arrive as comfort or safety. Sometimes it arrived disguised as destruction, forcing people to choose between survival and understanding. Neither of them spoke immediately. The cathedral itself carried enough silence for both. Eventually, Damon stepped forward slowly from the shadows, while snow swirled through broken sections of the ceiling above. His expression remained unreadable, yet Evelyn noticed something deeply unfamiliar inside his eyes. Regret, not for violence, for involving her in it. That realization weakened her anger instantly. Damon finally explained everything. The truth behind his revenge, the truth behind the war, and the truth behind why Evelyn had always mattered far more than she understood. Years earlier, Damon's fiancée and Evelyn's mother secretly uncovered a criminal network extending beyond organized crime itself. Politicians, federal contractors, judges, intelligence officials, and wealthy investors all participated in trafficking systems hidden beneath legitimate financial operations connected to the Hayes Empire and several major mafia organizations. When they attempted exposing it, someone betrayed them. Damon originally believed Richard Hayes ordered the murders and disappearances personally. But after years inside organized crime, Damon discovered a far darker truth. Richard Hayes had not controlled the system. He feared it. The real architects operated above criminal empires entirely, using mafia organizations, political families, and federal agencies as disposable tools protecting larger financial networks buried beneath government institutions. That revelation changed Damon completely. Revenge no longer became enough. He wanted collapse, not just of rival families, of the entire structure. And Evelyn unknowingly became central to that plan because her mother hid critical evidence before disappearing emotionally from public life years earlier. The hidden records inside the cathedral vault represented the final pieces exposing corruption powerful enough to destabilize political systems nationwide. Damon spent months after the mansion explosion preparing their release carefully, not to seize power afterward, to ensure nobody else could. As Evelyn absorbed the truth, another realization shattered through her painfully. Damon never protected her because she belonged to her family. He protected her because she was the only innocent thing left connected to the woman who once tried stopping all of it. Outside the cathedral, headlights suddenly appeared beyond the frozen valley. Multiple vehicles. Federal. Damon noticed immediately. "They found us," Evelyn whispered internally as fear returned violently. But Damon remained calm, almost relieved, because this had always been the ending he expected. Unknown to Evelyn, Julian Cross had tracked the hidden cathedral through encrypted financial trails connected to the leaked corruption files. And he had not arrived alone. Federal tactical teams surrounded the area, while armed contractors connected to surviving criminal organizations positioned themselves nearby under secret arrangements designed to recover or destroy the remaining evidence hidden inside the cathedral vault. Everyone wanted control over files, because whoever controlled the evidence controlled the future. The final confrontation began minutes later. Armed men stormed the cathedral grounds, while helicopters circled overhead through heavy snowfall. Searchlights illuminated shattered windows as federal agents ordered surrender through loudspeakers outside. Inside the cathedral, Damon opened the hidden vault completely. Thousands of files, encrypted drives, political records, evidence tied to trafficking, assassinations, blackmail operations, election manipulation, and organized crime partnerships spanning decades. Enough corruption to poison entire governments. Julian Cross entered first beneath armed escorts shortly afterward. His calm expression barely concealed desperation, because despite his rise in political influence after the Castellano Empire collapsed, Julian understood the files threatened everyone now, including him. Bianca Morelli arrived moments later alongside surviving rival leaders who once served competing mafia organizations. The woman who helped destroy Damon's empire looked colder than ever, though fear hid beneath her composure now. Nobody trusted anyone anymore, not even allies. The cathedral transformed into a battlefield balanced entirely on unstable loyalty and desperation. Julian attempted negotiating first. He argued that releasing the files publicly would destabilize governments, financial systems, intelligence operations, and law enforcement structures across the country. Millions would suffer economically and politically. But Damon no longer cared about preserving systems built on suffering. Years of revenge had transformed into something else entirely: truth. And truth frightened powerful people more than violence ever could. Bianca eventually revealed her final betrayal openly, long before the mansion attack. She secretly worked beside intelligence operatives, protecting corruption networks hidden above organized crime structures. She manipulated rival mafia families into war intentionally, because chaos allowed governments and corporate interests to absorb criminal operations quietly afterward. The mafia had never truly ruled cities. They only maintained territories powerful institutions found useful temporarily. Damon understood that too late, but he intended ending the cycle permanently now. The confrontation exploded into violence moments later. One rival operative attempted, seizing the vault drives, while federal agents opened fire almost simultaneously. Gunshots erupted across the cathedral as stained glass windows shattered beneath automatic weapons fire. Chaos consumed everything instantly. Julian's men exchanged fire with rival gunmen, while Bianca attempted escaping through underground tunnels beneath the cathedral. Damon protected Evelyn through collapsing stone corridors, while flames spread rapidly after stray bullets ignited ancient wooden support beams above. The cathedral began burning from within, and outside, news networks nationwide suddenly received anonymous data transmissions exposing corruption files publicly across international servers. Damon had already released everything. Governments panicked immediately. Politicians resigned live on television. Financial institutions froze accounts tied to criminal operations. Federal agencies turned against one another, trying to contain the damage. Across America, the hidden empire beneath organized crime began collapsing publicly in real time. Yet Damon showed no satisfaction, only exhaustion, because revenge never restored what people lost. It only left ruins behind. Inside the burning cathedral, Bianca finally met her end after attempting shooting Evelyn during the evacuation. Julian Cross abandoned her instantly to save himself. Proving loyalty meant nothing once survival became uncertain. Bianca died alone beneath falling cathedral debris, while flames consumed the underground passage. Julian escaped temporarily alongside surviving federal operatives. Though the corruption files ensured his political future was already collapsing publicly outside, nobody would survive this cleanly anymore. As the cathedral burned around them, Damon and Evelyn reached the ruined central sanctuary overlooking the frozen valley beyond shattered doors. For one brief moment, silence returned again beneath the firelight. The symbolic reflection struck Evelyn painfully then. Months earlier, she met Damon beneath chandeliers during a gala, surrounded by corruption, pretending to look elegant. Now they stood together beneath collapsing flames, while the entire system burned openly around them. The Empire had come full circle. Damon finally admitted the truth Evelyn needed most. He never wanted revenge against her. Not truly. At first, he believed hatred kept him alive. But somewhere between protecting her and losing everything, he realized revenge had only turned him into another weapon for the same corrupt world he claimed to despise. Evelyn changed that, not through innocence, through understanding. For the first time in years, someone saw the man beneath the violence instead of only fearing the monster. That mattered more to him than power ever had. The realization devastated Evelyn emotionally because she finally understood Damon's greatest tragedy. He spent his entire life believing survival required becoming something unlovable. Outside, federal agents closed around the burning cathedral, while helicopters illuminated the collapsing structure through snow and smoke. Escape routes disappeared rapidly beneath spreading fire. Damon understood there was almost no time left. Then came the final choice. A hidden tunnel beneath the sanctuary still offered one narrow path out, through underground catacombs leading beyond the valley. But collapsing fire blocked part of the route already. Only one person could realistically cross safely before the structure collapsed entirely. Evelyn refused initially, but Damon made the decision for both of them. For the first time since entering her life, He chose sacrifice instead of control. Instead of dragging her deeper into violence beside him, Damon reached for Evelyn's hand gently through the smoke and ash surrounding them. Not possessively, not desperately, like someone finally learning how to let go. Then he pressed a final encrypted drive containing every remaining corruption file into her hand. The future of everything now rested with her. Evelyn realized that Damon never intended surviving this ending. He intended ending the cycle permanently. As the cathedral trembled violently around them, Damon pushed Evelyn toward the escape tunnel, while flames consumed the sanctuary behind him. Their eyes met one final time through smoke, grief, trust, and unfinished emotion neither fully understood. Then the cathedral collapsed. Fire exploded through the structure, while federal agents rushed the ruins outside beneath screaming sirens and falling snow. Hours later, rescue crews searched through the burning wreckage until sunrise. Bodies were recovered. Weapons were cataloged. Evidence spread worldwide. But one terrifying fact remained unchanged. As federal agents surrounded the burning cathedral ruins, Evelyn realized Damon Castellano's body was never recovered from the destruction.